I first came across the idea of inherent requirements when I was working at University of Western Sydney under your management. And you were very involved in the development of the iRoan project with the nursing area at Western Sydney University, in really sort of unpacking for nursing what is inherent in that program, because I understood that they were having some difficulties with students enrolling in programs that they weren't able to then finish. That's where I became aware of it. You were doing a lot of work in the sphere, and then when you retired, I volunteered to be the person who took your role in terms of rolling the inherent requirements out and providing a disability perspective on the inherent requirements for Western Sydney University. So from that, I moved a couple of years ago to RMIT to head up a project around inherent requirements, and really sort of started from scratch using some of the great work of Western Sydney, and I guess just kind of adding on to that some changes and putting a bit of a flavour of RMIT on that work. I think the big standout for me is really about letting students know what they're going to be in for when they start a program. I think there's a tension between the amount of information that universities provide to commencing students about, or prospective students about, what the program's going to involve. And I think there's a tension between getting the students in and excited about the program, and perhaps giving them too much information from a marketing viewpoint, whereby the student might be turned off because they might think, oh, I'm not sure I can do that. So for me, I think it's really important to tell students what they're going to be in for when they enrol in a program. So many times I think students enrol in programs without fully knowing what those programs involve, and particularly when programs involve a placement aspect or a practical aspect where they're out in the community, they're going to be working with individuals in the community. So it really needs to be made clear what the expectations are when they're out in that environment. In the university environment, we can make a lot of reasonable adjustments, and there really should be no problem with being able to adjust for most things, most situations and circumstances in the university environment. In some ways, it's a lot more complicated when you're going out into the community to do that kind of practical placement kind of work. So that's definitely the standout for me. Is the most important part of the inherent requirements really is letting people know what they're going to be up for, what are they signing up for, how does their condition or disability impact on that expectation, and what kind of reasonable adjustments can be put in place. Let's have a conversation about it proactively right up front, before you get into second year, you're facing placement and you're not entirely sure how that's going to work out. Yeah. Well, I think the positives for disability staff are really that it gives them a framework and a frame of reference around each of the programs and the expectations for those programs. I work at a university that has a lot of programs. Our disability staff aren't across the minutiae of the details of those programs. It's impossible to do that. So to be able to have a framework of understanding around, okay, so you're studying medical radiations. What's going to be required in the medical radiations program? Let's have a look at that together. So sitting with the student, talking through what the expectations are and saying, okay, what are your thoughts? Where do you think, do you think you might have some struggles with some of this? And if you do think you're going to have some struggles with it, what can we do to support you in that? So I think it allows the disability staff to have a mechanism to communicate with the students. It also allows them to have a mechanism to communicate with the academic staff, I think. And that's really, really important, so that everybody's talking from the same song sheet in a way that, the inherent requirements are there, the academic staff have been part of developing those, the disability staff then can have a point of reference to have a conversation around this stuff.
So the benefits for the academics then?
The benefits for the academics are that, again, everybody's talking from the same book, essentially. So every academic in a particular school has a shared understanding of what that program requires. I think sometimes in the past, different academics in different areas have had a different idea actually about what might be possible within a program, and that can be very dependent on their personal experiences, their perspective or their lens that they look at the program through. So for everybody across the whole of the school or the program to be able to sort of go, okay, well this is what we actually have decided is inherent for this program. So it increases the understanding, I think, of the content. It also assists them to, I think, look at their curriculum. And one of the really wonderful things that I find working in this space is the opportunity to actually educate academics and around what's possible for students with particular conditions. And that's what I really love about the work, is that it's an opportunity to sit down with academics when they have an idea about what they think is inherent and really challenge that and say, well, give me an example. If you can't provide me with an adequate example, then my view is it's probably not inherent. And I know that's a little quote that I think I've picked up from you, Trev. And, I really think that there's just such a great opportunity there to say, well, actually, we have some assistive technology that could support that student in that situation, or, we can put a practical assistant in place. So it gives us an opportunity to really kind of share that information with the academics. And I think that's the richness of the work for me. Look, I think one of the biggest issues with inherent requirements is the understanding of what is inherent and the use of that. And, whilst we view, you and I have a shared understanding around what we believe to be the inherent requirements as an inclusive practice, it could very easily be used as an exclusionary practice. And I think there's a huge piece of work there around educating academic staff around how to speak about inherent requirements when they're talking to students. A conversation at orientation could be the make or break for a student. A mere comment about, oh, I don't think you'd fulfil the inherent requirements, could actually be the moment where that student walks away and says, no, I'm not going to do this program. So, I think that is my biggest, worry about the work, is that the potential to be used in an exclusionary way is a concern. And the potential, to be kind of whitewashing and not looking at individual circumstance as well. I think that's just so key to this work, is to really look at the individual situation, because person A who has a vision impairment is not the same as person B who has a vision impairment who might be studying the same program. So really sort of, unpacking that and understanding that and working within that framework. I think everybody has major concerns about the possibility of it being used in an exclusionary way, and that's what we want to avoid, really. Do I think they're worth the effort? Look, it is, I do, I do, if done well and if done comprehensively. And I think sometimes institutions want to tick a box and, we've done that now, great, let's move on. There is a need to do this work in a robust way and to be not only looking at the expression of inherent requirements for programs, but also then what's in the background. So, what's the process if there's a question around somebody's capacity to meet the inherent requirements, and embedding that actually into the processes of the university to make sure that it's not used in an exclusionary way, and that there is a methodology that needs to be followed, where all of the reasonable adjustments are actually unpacked and looked at to see what's possible. So yeah, upshot, I do think it is worth it. It is a lot of work. I don't deny that. And having been at the ground roots of that work for probably 4 or 5 years, I really understand that. And it is tiring and it is a hard push. And, there have been times where I've just gone, forget it. I don't think I want to do this anymore. It's really controversial, and people think that I'm being discriminatory, and nothing could be further from the truth for me, and the thought that somebody would think that is horrifying to me. So look, it's tough work actually, I think, and it's tough work getting it right actually, and I think it is worth it ultimately.